Today, we're talking about self-discipline. We want to know what it means. First of all, if it means anything, it means complete control over both the body and the mind. Complete control. Now, listen, that doesn't mean changing your mind or your body. It just simply means controlling it. You know, the great emotion of sex. Gets more people into trouble than all of the other emotions combined. And yet, it is the most creative, it's the most profound, and it is the most divine of all of the emotions. You know, it's not the emotion that gets people into trouble, it's their lack of controlling it and directing it, transmuting it, which they would be readily able to do if they had self-discipline. So it is with other faculties of the body and the mind. It's not that you have to change completely. It's just that you have to be the master. You have to be in control. You have to recognize the things that you must do in order to have sound health and peace of mind. It also means the development of daily habits by which the mind is kept occupied in connection with the things and the circumstances that one desires and off the circumstances that one does not desire. It means that you will not accept or submit to the influence of any circumstance that you do not desire. Nothing at all. Don't submit to it. You may have to tolerate it. You may have to recognize that it's there, but you don't have to submit. That is, you don't have to let it conquer you. You don't have to admit that it's stronger than you are. But on the other hand, you assert that you're stronger than it because you're not going to submit to it. Now, you can give your imagination a wide range of operations as to what some of these things are that you have to deal with, but you're not going to submit to them. I'm not going to mention them. It might get too personal. It means that you will build a 3-wall protection around yourself so that nobody will ever know all about you or what goes on in your mind. Isn't that an interesting thing? Would you want anybody in this world to know all about you? Who would? If you're in your right mind, you wouldn't. Would you want anybody in this world to know all that you think about them? I'm sure you wouldn't. Well, there are a lot of people in this world today that make the mistake of just letting everybody know all that goes on in their mind. All you have to do is to start them talking. You know, those people who start their mouths to working and then they just go off and leave them. You know the type that I'm talking about. Just get them started, and believe me, you will find out all about them, good and bad. You know, sometimes we as a people can end up talking too damn much. You tell me what a man fears, and I'll tell you how to master him. The very minute that you find out what anybody fears, you'll know exactly how to control that person. If you are foolish enough to want to control anybody on that basis. I don't want to control anybody on fear. Not at all. If I control anybody, I want it on the basis of what? Of love. Of course. Of course. I wouldn't have any control over anybody on any other basis other than the control that he wants me to have over him. In all honesty, the average person talks too much for his own good. Now, you've heard me speak of invisible guides in other videos, and you will hear me speak in this video and in the future. And if you weren't into philosophy like that, and you didn't understand metaphysics, you would think you would probably say that is a very fantastic system that my mentor has worked out. And when I get to explaining it to you, and you could probably find those type of different systems in other areas of philosophy and of just life and trying to figure things out. I'll assure you, it is not 100% foolproof of a fantastic system. I'll assure you that it's these guys, they look after my needs and my wants. I'll admit, last week myself on the job, working on the road, I became a little bit careless. With the guide of sound physical health, it let me down for a day or two, but I did something about it. I came to his rescue. I gave him a good jab in the ribs and woke him up. And believe me, I have more energy this week than I did last. So it's a good thing that I had that little state of weakening. It made me a little bit more particular about expressing gratitude to this guide of sound physical health and not neglect it. Now, even me, I fully realize that these guides that I often speak of are nothing but a figment of my own imagination and that of my mentor. We're not kidding ourselves or anybody else about that. But for all practical purposes, they represent real entities and real people. And each one of them is performing the exact duty that's assigned to it and is doing it all the time. The first of these guides is the guide to physical sound health. Why do you suppose that I put that as number one? What in the world could the mind do going around in the body that has to be supported by crutches all the time? A good, strong physical body. It's the temple of the mind. It has to be sound. It has to be healthy. There has to be plenty of energy there. When you go on to turn on the old enthusiasm button and there's no energy there, no energy at all, you can't generate something out of nothing. You've got to have a store of energy. You understand? And energy is physical in nature. It's physical in nature and also mental in nature. But I don't know of anybody who could express intense enthusiasm, whose body is in a series of aches and pains. So your first duty always is to your physical body, to see that it responds to all of your needs all the time, does the things that it was supposed to do, and you'll need a little bit more help than what just you can give. For example, when you lay your body down and nature goes to work on it as you sleep, give it a little tune-up, but working over. And you have to have this trained entity called the guide of sound health to do that job, to supervise it, to see that it's done properly. And then this number 2, the guide to financial prosperity. Why do you suppose that I put that second in importance only? Do you know of anybody that you come into contact with in your life who can be of any great service to others without money? How long can you get along without money? No, you've got to have money. You've got to have a money consciousness. And this entity that you're building up here through these guides gives you a money consciousness. You see, my guide is so controlled, however, that it doesn't make money my God. I don't permit that. I don't permit myself to become greedy, to wanna over amount or an overabundance, or to pay too much for the money that I get. I pay enough, not too much. I know people who pay too much, who die too young, because they put too much importance into accumulating money that they didn't need, they couldn't use. The only purpose that it could serve would be to cause their descendants to fight over it after they were passed on. My mentor seen all of that. And he, and like myself, know the importance of learning to live a balanced life as you go along, so that you can make your occupation or your daily labor, whatever it is, a game that you play, as a game as ardently as a man would play a game of golf. or some other game that he loved. In this guide, it's business to see that I stop when I get enough and that I don't want too much. You know, this money getting business becomes kind of a vicious circle with a lot of people. It does. It becomes a vicious circle. You get in it and you say that, you know what, I'll make my first, big lump sum, a couple $100,000, or, let's say $1 million. I'll make my first $1 million and I'll quit. I got some friends, unfortunately, on the dark side of life. And it reminds me of one time or two where they was just like, you know what, we're going to jump into this little plan. We're going to make enough money and then we're going to quit. I'm going to back down. Just go live off of the funds made. But now they said that, and they're still down there struggling harder than they ever did before, making more money than they did at the beginning every year. But they're still struggling in a rat race. Now, I'm not speaking in a derogatory manner, you understand. Some of these cats are some good friends still to this day. But I mean that for all people who pay too much for trying to get things that they don't need. Now, this is a philosophy dealing with economic success. But success wouldn't consist in your dying too young, you dying off too young because you pay too much to try to get anything. Stop when you get enough. Make better use of the things that you have right now, instead of trying to get a lot more other things that you're not going to have any use for at all. Oh, what a wonderful thing it is. That statement that comes out of the Bible. I'm not gonna translate it verbatim, but the meaning of it is not too much, not too little of anything, but not too much, just enough of everything. Sometimes I wonder what is enough, and not too much. And that's one of the blessings of this philosophy. You learn to live a balanced life. You learn what is enough and what's too much. Now, the next one is of most importance, the guide to peace of mind. What good would it be to you if you own, all the royalties in the world? You can collect royalty off of every person living in this world. If you didn't have peace of mind, what good would it be? I've always said that one of the sins of civilization consists in the fact that so few people are engaged in the labor of love. A thing that you would like to do. Most people are doing things now just so that they can have something to eat, a place to sleep, and then some clothes to wear. But when a man or a woman gets into a position where he or she can do the thing that they want to do because they love doing it, and for the sake of doing it, well, I want to tell you that type of person is really fortunate. And this philosophy leads to that very condition, but you will never attain that position until you learn to maintain a positive mental attitude, at least a major portion of your time. Now, the next one of these guides here, they're twins, the guide to hope and faith. How far would you get in life if you didn't have that eternal burning flame of hope and faith working in your soul? When you think about it, there wouldn't be anything worth working for, worth living for, would there? So you have to have a system for keeping your mind positive, because there are things to destroy hope and faith, aren't there? People, circumstances, things that you can't control even, that pop up into your life, and you have to have a system to antidote those things or to offset them, something that you can manipulate and draw upon. And I know of no better system than these 8 guides that I have here worked up in this recording, because they work for me just as well as they work for my mentor and other people that picked him up after hearing from him. You understand? He taught these guides to a great many number of other people, and they work just as well for them as they do for him as they do for me. Now the next two are also twins. The guide to love and romance. I don't believe that anything worthwhile can be accomplished unless a man or a woman romanticized whatever it is you're doing. If you don't put some love and romance into whatever it is you're doing, you're not going to get any fun out of it. And certainly, if there's no love in your heart, then you're not just quite a human being. The main difference between the lower animals and the human being is that the human being is capable of expressing the emotion of love. It's a wonderful thing. It's a great thing. It's a great builder of genius and of leaders. It's a great maintainer of sound health. To have had a great capacity to love is to have had the privilege of rubbing elbows with genius. There's no two ways about that. It's absolutely true. And so the two guides of love and romance in my life keep me friendly, with what I'm doing in life. And they keep me young in the body and the mind. And they do just that, believe you me. Not only do they keep me young in the body and the mind, they keep me enthusiastic, they keep me sold on what it is that I'm doing. And it takes the drudgery out of everything that I'm doing. In other words, I don't have any such thing as hard work. I don't work at anything. I play at everything I do, and everything that I do is a labor of love. I recognize, of course, before you get into a position where you can forget about economically earning a living, some things that you have to think about. That takes the pleasure out of work. But if you watch yourself, you can develop a system that makes everything that you do, even washing dishes or digging ditches or anything else, you can make it a labor of love for the time being. When I go home, I hope my old lady wash the dishes, not because she couldn't do it, but I just want to feel that I'm not too good to help wash the dishes. Then I get great joy out of doing it. Go work out in the front yard and pull weeds and pick up trash and get in the garden. I ain't want to let her have to go through it and have to do it by herself. And I had already brought, a couple of gnomes and some other trinkets to place in all that good health that I got out of doing that. Oh, it's a great thing to learn to learn to live the simple life, to learn to be a human being instead of a stiff shirt or Karen or something else that you don't want to be. Nobody wants to be. Love and romance. Learn to get that into your life and learn to have a system by where that habit of love and romance will express itself with everything that you do. And then this last one, the guide to overall wisdom. His job is, he's the controller of the other seven. And it's his business to keep them active, eternally engaged in your service. And also to adjust you to every circumstance in your life, pleasant or unpleasant, so that you benefit by that circumstance. I can truthfully tell you that nothing, as far as unpleasant circumstances that come into my life, that I don't definitely put to the grindstone. Try to make shrapnel out of it, just so that I can kind of hone myself to the criticisms or any other unpleasant circumstances in life. I let it blow right by. Everything that comes to my mill, I make grist out of it. And the more unpleasant things that come, the more grist I get out of it, the more I grind it up and make shrapnel. I definitely grind them so that they won't be anything else but dust and shrapnel particles in the wind. It's a wonderful thing when you come to recognize that no experience in life is ever lost at all. No experience is ever lost at all. If only you would make the right adaptation of yourself to it. You can always profit by every experience in life if you have a system for doing it. Of course, if you just let your emotions run wild, then you will go down under a dull thud, under these unpleasant experiences, you'll turn out to have more unpleasant experiences than you will pleasant ones. But there's, even if I do say that, there's a peculiar thing about unpleasant circumstances. They're cowardly. See, when you get to the point where you say, come on over here, you unpleasant circumstance, I got a set of harness right here, I'm throwing on your back and put you to work. Somehow, some other way, they find business around the corner, and they don't come around your way too often when they know that you're going to put them to work. If you fear unpleasant circumstances, they'll trout down on you in flocks. They'll come in through the back door, through the side door, where you're not suspecting them, when you're unprepared to deal with them. I don't particularly invite unpleasant experiences, but if they're foolish enough to come my way, they'll find themselves ground up in my mill of life. I'll make grist as sure as anything, but I will not go down under them. Eternal vigilance is the price that one must pay to maintain a positive mental attitude. Because of these and other natural opposites of positive thinking, and here they are. First of all, your negative self constantly maneuvering to gain power over you. Did you know that there are entities working in your makeup all the time, constantly maneuvering to gain power over you on the negative side of life? You have to be eternally on alert to see that those entities don't take you over. Then your accumulated fears and your doubts and your self-imposed limitations, you have to deal with those constantly, lest they get the upper hand and lest they become the dominating influence in your life. Next time, in the next recording, we'll continue on with self-discipline and go more in depth as we talk about how it's going to benefit us to have a hold on self-discipline. Family, have a good night.